Listen, just for a moment, take a breath with me. There's a good chance you felt it. That low, constant hum of tension, not always loud, but always there. A sense that something is off, that something is happening, and you're supposed to be paying attention to it. And maybe you are paying attention, but you're checking headlines a little more than you used to, scrolling a little longer than you meant to, and feeling a little more on edge than you'd like to admit. And here's the part I want to gently name. That feeling is not entirely accidental. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's figure out why it is not accidental and what to do about it.
Mug on the table, rain on the glass, you've been holding your breath, trying to get past the past. Better angels of our nature, sit down, stay a while. We'll name every shadow till it loosens its bite. Better angels of our nature, in the hurt, in the heart, finding room for a softer heart. Right here.
Welcome to Better Angels of Our Nature with Marcie Gourley. Don't forget to press like. Thank you for bearing with me through a break from the podcast last week. I had the opportunity to attend a writers' conference in Washington, D.C. What a beautiful time of year to visit the nation's capital. And in early spring, Washington, D.C. softens. The city, known for its structure and symbolism, begins to breathe a little differently as the cherry blossoms come into bloom, especially around the tidal basin, where pale pink petals frame the Jefferson Memorial and reflect gently across the water. There's a quiet contrast in the air. Monuments that stand for permanence, surrounded by something beautifully temporary. The breeze carries petals like soft snowfall. Sidewalks fill with both visitors and stillness. Even the busiest spaces feel just a little more reflective. It's a reminder that even in places built on history and weight, there is room for renewal. And for a few short weeks each year, the city doesn't just tell the story of what has been, it quietly whispers about what is blooming again. Over the weekend, I stayed at Washington Hilton, where in 1981 there was an attempt to take Ronald Reagan's life. I'm old enough to remember that day. I remember a bullet ricocheted and punctured the president's lungs. I remember his wave just before it happened, the generous smile. I remember his recovery. I remember Press Secretary James Brady caught a bullet that left permanent brain damage and disabilities, and 2 more people were fully recovered. Last week at the hotel, I was about to check out, and I was talking with the concierge about some transportation and my upcoming book, 250 Great Things About America. He then kindly gave my daughter and I a private tour, walking us through the lobby to the driveway where it happened. He told us that presidents often visit the hotel because of the generous size of the ballroom's capacity. Then he showed us the adjacent garage that was built to keep presidents safe as a result of the tragedy. When I stood outside where the tragedy happened on the very same spot, everything felt peaceful, which made me pause. How can a place hold both trauma and peace at the same time? The same ground that once held fear now holds rest. The same space that witnessed chaos now welcomes people in. And maybe that's true for us too. We carry moments that were sharp, unexpected, disorienting, moments that changed us, for better or worse, but healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like walking forward, breathing again, finding the place that once hurt. Doesn't have the same hold it used to. It brought this verse to mind. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up our wounds. That's from Psalm 147:3. What if healing isn't about erasing what happened, but about what grows in the same place afterward? What if peace doesn't require a new ground, just a restored one? And what if the very places that once held pain could, over time, become places where you learn how steady you've become, through leaning on God's presence in pain and in the pause. We don't always choose what happens, but we can become steady in what remains. Right now, however, we are living in a time where your attention is valuable, not just valuable in a poetic sense, valuable in a measurable economic sense. There are entire systems, media cycles, algorithms, platforms that are designed to keep you engaged. And one of the most reliable ways to keep a human being engaged is to keep them slightly anxious, because anxiety keeps you watching. It keeps you clicking. It keeps you coming back for updates. Now, hear me clearly. This is not about blaming one side or the other. This is not about withdrawing from the world or becoming uninformed. This is about understanding something important. If you don't intentionally manage your attention, something else will. So why is your brain especially vulnerable right now? Your brain is not broken in this anxiety. It's actually doing exactly what it's designed to do. The human brain is wired to scan for threat, to notice what's wrong, to stay alert to what could go wrong next, to survive. But here's the difference. We were designed to respond to immediate physical threats, not a constant stream of breaking news, global crises, political conflict, social outrage, and worst-case scenarios on repeat. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between something happening near you and something happening on your screen. So your body responds as if the threat is right in front of you. Your chest tightens, your thoughts start to race, and you feel more irritable than you want to be, and a kind of deep fatigue settles in. And when this happens over and over again, it doesn't just pass through you, it begins to settle into you. It becomes your baseline, the place your body starts from each day. Like walking into a room where the lights have slowly dimmed. You may not notice the exact moment it changed, but after a while, everything feels a little heavier, a little harder, and you forget what it used to feel like to stand fully in the light. So there's a cost of living in constant reaction. When your system stays activated like that, it begins to change you. Not all at once, not in ways that are immediately obvious, but slowly and quietly over time. You may find yourself reacting more quickly with less space between what you feel and what you say. Listening becomes harder, patience thinner. You might feel more certain in your opinions, yet somehow less grounded in yourself. More informed about everything happening around you, but less at peace with it. And perhaps most noticeably, there's a subtle shift inside. You start to lose your sense of internal steadiness. It can feel like trying to find your footing on shifting sand, where your emotions rise and fall with whatever you just read or heard. Instead of moving from a place that feels anchored and clear, you begin to take your cues from what's happening all around you, the latest headline, the strongest opinion, and the most urgent voice. And in that, you can start to feel a little untethered, like you're being pulled along by the current rather than standing firmly in who you are. So here's a grounding historical perspective. There's something about human nature that hasn't changed nearly as much as we think. In the years leading up to the American Revolution, the atmosphere was anything but calm. Pamphlets flooded the colonies, none more influential than Common Sense by Thomas Paine, stirring urgency, conviction, and strong emotion in everyday people. Conversations in taverns and town squares were charged. Loyalties were divided. The stakes were not theoretical. They were deeply personal and often dangerous. And yet, in the middle of the intensity, you find figures like George Washington, who was known not for loud rhetoric, but for a kind of steady restraint. During moments when frustration, fear, and even desperation ran high among his troops, especially in the brutal winter at Valley Forge encampment, he held a posture that was measured, deliberate, and grounded. He took in the reality of what was still happening. He felt the full weight of it and still chose clarity over chaos. During that winter at Valley Forge, the Continental Army was on the edge of collapse. Soldiers were cold, hungry, many without proper clothing or shelter. Disease was spreading, morale was low, and desertion was a real possibility. Almost no news was good news. In the middle of all that, George Washington did something remarkable. He didn't panic. He didn't lash out. He didn't let the desperation around him dictate his leadership. Instead, his letters to others acknowledged the reality. He called it a time of distress, but his posture remained steady and deliberate. He stayed present with his troops, and rather than giving into chaos, he brought structure, supporting training, discipline, and order even in the harshest conditions. He felt the full weight of what was happening and still chose clarity. That kind of steadiness wasn't born from ignoring the moment. It came from being anchored in something deeper than it, reflection and anchoring. It's a reminder that even in the most uncertain and urgent times, the voices that shape history are often not the loudest, but the most grounded. In fact, some of the most influential leaders of that time were not the loudest voices. They were the most grounded ones, men and women who could take in information and feel the weight of it and still respond with clarity instead of chaos. That kind of steadiness didn't come from ignoring reality. It came from anchoring themselves deeper in the moment. So those are some examples. So what do we do about it? Let's make it practical. Because we don't necessarily need more media awareness. We need something we can actually do. So here's how we stay steady. Number one, create a boundary around your input. Right now, information is coming at you all day. That's not neutral. So instead of asking, should I stay informed? Ask this instead. How much input can I handle without losing my steadiness? And try this. Set specific times to check news once or twice daily. Avoid consuming it first thing in the morning or right before bed. Choose a few trusted sources, not endless scrolling. You're not disengaging. You're taking responsibility for your mental environment. Number two, learn to notice when you've been hooked. There's a moment right before anxiety takes over where something hooks your attention. A headline, a comment, a video. Your body shifts. That's your signal. Instead of continuing to scroll, pause and ask, what is this doing to me right now? Don't ask in this moment, is it true? Who's right? But what is this doing to me? That question alone creates space. There is a small but powerful moment right before anxiety fully takes hold when your body signals that something has hooked your attention. And choosing to pause in that moment is not avoidance, but an emotionally and even spiritually responsible act. Research on stress and emotional regulation shows that even brief pauses, just a few seconds of mindful awareness, can interrupt the brain's automatic threat response and shift activity away from reactivity toward regulation. When you ask, what is this doing to me right now, instead of immediately evaluating or reacting, you create space. And the space is where steadiness begins. It is where you move from being pulled by every external stimulus to becoming a thoughtful steward of your inner world. In a culture that rewards instant reaction, choosing to pause is a quiet act of integrity. It allows you to remain present, discerning, and grounded, responding not from pressure, but from clarity. Number three, regulate before you respond. You do not have to react in real time, believe it or not. In fact, most of the time, you shouldn't. When you feel that surge, step away, take a few slow breaths, let your body settle. Even 60 to 90 seconds matters, because clarity doesn't come from activation. It comes from regulation. Let me ground this in something important, because this isn't just a helpful idea. It's actually supported by research. Studies on mindfulness and emotional regulation show that even brief pauses, just a few seconds of awareness, can interrupt the brain's automatic stress response. When you stop and notice what you're feeling, it reduces activity in the part of the brain that drives fear and reactivity and re-engages the part responsible for clarity and decision-making. In simple terms, that pause creates space, and that space is what allows you to move from reacting automatically to responding intentionally. This doesn't just apply to media anxiety, but also to anxiety in relation to communication patterns within relationships. It is a cognitive restructuring process that helps us respond to most types of anxiety-inducing situations in a steadier way. So when you ask, what is this doing to me right now? You're not just reflecting. You're actually changing how your brain processes the moment. Number four, re-anchor yourself in what is actually yours to carry. There are things that matter deeply, and there are things that are simply loud. Not everything loud is yours to carry. Ask, what is actually within my influence today? Your home, your words, your responses, your relationships, that's where your power is. And for those who follow Christ, this is also where your anchoring is found. Scripture invites us to be still and know that I am God from Psalm 46:10. Not as an escape from the world, but as a return to what is steady and true. Stillness is not passive. It is a deliberate turning away from the noise so you can be rooted again in his presence. When everything around you feels urgent and loud, anchoring in Christ reminds you that you are not called to carry everything. You are called to remain faithful in what has been placed in your hands. And from that place of stillness, your thoughts, your words, and your responses begin to flow with greater clarity and peace. Number 5, choose depth over constant exposure. You don't need more information. You need deeper understanding of less. Instead of 50 headlines, choose one issue, one thoughtful perspective, and one meaningful conversation. That's how you stay informed without becoming overwhelmed. So here's a gentle reframe. The goal is not to become disconnected. The goal is not to stop caring. The goal is this: to remain steady enough that your care is actually useful. Because when you are grounded, your words carry weight. Your relationships stay intact. Your decisions become wiser. Your presence becomes calming to others. So today, just begin here. You don't have to absorb everything. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to carry everything. You are allowed to be informed, aware, engaged, and still steady. And maybe, just maybe, the most meaningful thing you can offer the world right now is not more noise, but a life that is quietly, consistently grounded in something deeper, something healthy to stay rooted into, to allow for healthy growth. If this helped you today, share it with someone who might need a little more steadiness too. Until next time, let's hold steady and call our better angels forward. Don't forget, my book, 250 Great Things About America, is debuting April 21st. That's just a couple weeks from now. So catch this link and grab a copy for yourself. 250 Great Things About America. Thanks.
What if the thing you're most certain about is also the thing most likely to damage your relationships if you don't know what to do with it? Because conviction on its own isn't the problem. It's what we do with our conviction that determines whether it builds something or breaks it.